Hi, I'm Ben Sweere. I did my book report on the book Driven by Donald Driver. Um, I picked this book because Donald Driver was one of my favorite players growing up. I kind of like knew a lot about him, in the game of football, but I didn't like know a lot about him outside of the sport. So I thought this would be super interesting. I was kind of skeptical at first picking like an autobiography, but I'm glad I did because it was an easy read because I was reading about stuff that like about a person that I was interested in, but I didn't know a whole lot about. I thought I knew a lot about him, but it turns out that I actually did not. So to start, just kind of a brief summary would be he was born in Texas into like low income community. He had three siblings. Never really had like a father figure in his life, which to me like I couldn't even imagine because I'm pretty close to my dad and like going throughout life like I had a lot of questions, to ask my father and to get like a male perspective, and for him to not have that, like that's really tough. He ended up, you know, dealing drugs and being around some pretty scary stuff for a 12 to 16-year-old to be around. Um, then he had um, he had like a group of friends that he kind of stuck around, but he was moving all over the place. Um, his mom would like date different guys because his biological father walked out on him or on the family. Um, and sorry, um, but yeah, his mom started dating other guys, and none of them really stuck, and they moved all over. He was never like in one place for a long time, but he's in the same area, so he still had the same friends. And then in high school, uh, he figured out he's pretty good at sports, but this whole time he's still like dealing drugs, like going down a road that he didn't necessarily think was like a good road to go down. Um, but when he got to high school again, he thought he knew he was really good at sports. He was like the fastest kid that anybody knew in the area. So then playing football, realized he was pretty good. Ended up going to Alcorn State. In the book report, I talk about how he had other options, but they were sending them to an address that he did not live at, so he was not receiving that mail. So he committed to Alcorn State when in reality, the University of Miami, which was his dream college, actually ended up giving him a scholarship offer, but he was already committed to Alcorn State, so he ended up just going there. A big influence on that also was his grandfather, who he ended up living with because um, his mother picked to be with a man. He kind of gave her an ultimatum, picked to be with a man over the kids. So Donald's grandfather preferred that he um, go to an all black school, so he ended up going there. Did pretty well. Um, Fell super far in the draft. Didn't get drafted where he wanted to, but all in all, he had a really successful career with the Packers. Reading that part was really interesting because I was reading stuff that I, kind of already knew, so that always feels good. But so I wrote down here, how did the book help you grow? Seeing a different perspective. Like I grew up in a completely different atmosphere than he did. I had a close knit family. Just like seeing how different of a background that other people come from, and like you don't know that necessarily when you see people in different walks of life. Like you don't necessarily know where they came from, so it kind of changed my perspective, like especially in sports. Like you don't know where somebody's coming from, and that's what I love about sports is like when you're on the field, that is like the ultimate equalizer. There's nothing that really separates you except for your abilities on the field. So that's really cool. I think he wrote this to that wrote the book to like tell his life story and like give people hope, especially people from the same kind of background as him, to show like there is a way out. And he makes it really clear that like his achievements on the field aren't like what he's most proud of. He's most proud of like he's close to his family. For example, he has three siblings that he grew up with, but he met 12 other siblings that his dad had as kids down the road. And one of the things he's most proud of is like getting close to them, like getting to know them because he never knew them when he was growing up. Um, what I enjoyed most about the book was definitely, I'm a huge Packers fan, so um, reading all the parts that were about the Packers and like seeing names that I know, like name drops, for example, Brett Favre. I know Jerry Rice was on the Packers, but Jerry Rice was in there a little bit. Um, just a bunch of names that was really cool to read. Um, so if I was gonna rate this book on Amazon, I would definitely give it a good review. Um, I might be a little biased because I'm a Packers fan again, so um, I didn't want to put the book down. I just kept reading because they were all things that I was super interested in. Um, but again, yeah, like just after reading the whole book, it kind of changed my perspective when it comes to sports recreation and management. If I was like, let's say, a coach or in a coaching position or around a team, again, not just assuming that I know where people came from, not just like assuming that everybody's life is bread and butter, just easy. Because he came from nothing. He was dealing drugs to make money for his family. He was getting good grades in school because he knew to get a scholarship he had a better opportunity if he was getting good grades. Like things like that. Like just not knowing where somebody's coming from and how vital it is to be like just a light and be somebody who people can trust with things. They can talk to you about whatever, and just really understanding that there's more to life than sports. But to be successful in sports, you definitely need to care about the human being, not care about just their abilities on the field. Um, but yeah, I definitely enjoyed this book. I'd recommend it to anybody. Yeah, I think that's about it.